we didn't really have any skill sets. And my work experience was I worked at a grocery store. Like it was just like, we're going to make the agency work and you're going to have to kill us if not. Right. So, if you're selling a $2,000 per month package and you're shaking in your boots because you think $2,000 is so much money, you're going to really struggle. I realized that, hey, 8 figures is not that different from 7 figures.
How many clients did you guys close in the entirety of running Lee Jolt?
Exact number.
Because you transitioned out the agency space and now you're moving on to new things. I guess what's your 100-year plan?
It's a great question. I love agency, man. So
Yo, what is going on, everybody? I'm super excited for this one. We got a legend in the house, Mr. John Danes. What's interesting is John and I used to be competitors, or that's what most people would call it. I never really saw it like that. There's enough fish out there, but I'm super excited for this one because John's got a ton of experience in the agency space, and he's doing some cool stuff now. So, Mr. Danes, would love to just hear about your story, talk to the audience about who you are, man.
well, yeah, bro. First of all, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Obviously, massive respect to you. I think there's a few people out there that have cracked this weird game that we call marketing agency. And I think you're definitely one of those people, man. So huge
Thank
respect to you. Thank you for having me. But yeah, the question was kind of my background, I guess. Yeah, as you said, I had a real estate agency similar to yourself that we were able to scale. We scaled it up pretty quickly. That was a multi 7 figure agency for about 3 years. Kind of left that in March of 2023. Went to go work with Iman for a little bit, and then now back on my own grind again, kind of working on some of my own stuff, dude. So yeah, it's been pretty fun.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Dude, talk about what it was like working with actually before we dive into
Cool.
Iman, because I think that's gonna be super interesting and the
Yep.
audience is gonna wanna hear that. So make sure you guys pay attention to till the end. But I want to dive deeper into how you found SMA, how you got started in the space.
It's a great
Uh,
question.
and yeah, let's start off with that.
So I don't actually know if anybody's ever asked me that. People typically focus on like the results, but they don't actually look at the inception. So that's interesting that you asked that. So I actually my first encounter with agency, I'm a little bit older than you, but when I was in, let's call it ninth grade or 10th grade, I had this teacher. I didn't like school. I didn't do very well in school. I had this teacher who was kind of a lazy teacher. Mr. Terry was his name.
Mhm.
And so he was a history teacher and he fit like every stereotypical history teacher, like the American history teacher that just like lazy and doesn't,
Yeah,
kind of just showing up and getting his check. And
yeah,
he would always put on videos for the class. So we would watch like a lot of documentaries so he wouldn't have to teach.
yeah.
And we always got Ty Lopez ads when he would turn them on. So it was always the here in my garage, just bought this new Lamborghini ad. And I remember just thinking like, man, I could learn from, the history teacher, or I could learn from the guy with the Lamborghini. It's like, I want to learn from the guy with the Lamborghini. So obviously in 10th grade, I think Ty's course was like a couple thousand at that point. So never bought it. And then, but I was always interested in SMMA and agency. And then when I was in 12th grade, I was actually working at a grocery store and I was stocking the refrigerator at the grocery store. And I became friends with this guy who worked in the bakery who was going through the Ty Lopez course. And he had like one client or something like that, maybe two. Chandler, we still talk. We're still connected. We don't talk super often, but Chandler, if you're watching this, thank you, bro. But Chandler gave me the login to the SMMA course.
Wow.
I kind of had to ask him a few times for it, but yeah, he finally conceded and gave me the login to the SMMA course. And I guess this would have been 2018 or so. And I
Yeah.
remember going through it and being like, man, let me get this straight. So, these people will pay me thousands of dollars a month to do this stuff that they don't want to do or know how to do, but they know they need to do. I was like, man, this makes a lot of sense. So, I got started very slowly. Jared, I think you're one of the people that like you found it and you just freaking dove in head first, which is the best way to do it. I really like if it was a pool, I put one foot in and it's like it's a little cold, and I put another foot in, and I eventually kind of got down to the waist and then got all the way in. But for me, I kind of started up pretty slow. So I had a few different things that I did. Like we had some bigger clients, some of my bigger meaning like bigger time investment, not necessarily bigger money investment, but like I had a health and wellness company that I ended up being like a full-time worker for. This was like one of my first clients for agency. And then ended up saying like, well, rather than spending all this time with all my clients, I just want to do this like kind of productized agency thing, which is, what you and I have been able to do, where you're just, getting as many clients as you can and not a big time input on each client. And then that's what we started to do. And then I was able to scale that pretty much starting in 2020. And we kind of had a few different clients, but our real estate agent did the best. And that's when I was like, all right, just going to put head down, go all in on real estate agents. And then, we scaled that one up.
And you were already partnered with what's your
Adam.
partner? Adam. Geesh, you were already partnered with Adam.
Adam and I were pretty much partners from the jump. So, I mean, we pretty much started the whole thing together. Adam and I have pretty much always been tied at the hip, if you will. So, when I had a podcast, he helped a lot with the podcast while I was starting that. That was really before we started the agency. And then we kind of had our first version of the agency, and then we transitioned into doing the real estate agent. So, yeah, Adam was through and through partner from day one. Adam, was the guy from day one.
Yeah. Dude, I met Adam at Eddie's Maloof at Agency Founders.
That's awesome.
Awesome guy. Like
Yeah,
Jim,
Adam's a great guy, man.
like I wish I would have talked with him more, but he just seems so genuine and I was like, I like this guy a
Yeah,
lot.
he's a good guy, man. He's a really good guy. He's super smart. He's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Couldn't be more thankful for Adam.
What how do you think having a partner, because obviously we both had partners. I had Matt, you had Adam.
Yep.
Uh Matt and I think you and I were really similar. We're like the front end guys,
Yep.
rainmakers, and Matt and Adam are more in the back end. How do
Yep.
you think that helped you? Because for a while I didn't have a partner in my first agency, and like that one collapsed way quicker.
Yep.
Like what what's the benefit of having a partner? What's also the downside?
Yeah. So it's interesting because when Adam and I partnered up, right, we didn't really have any skill sets. So it's kind of interesting because you naturally fall into roles when you don't have any skill sets. So like Adam and I had never done online marketing. We never run a business before. Adam's work experience was Dick's Sporting Goods. And my work experience was I worked at a grocery store, so it's like we didn't really have any experience. We kind of naturally fell into the roles that I think our personality fit. I'm more, you know, front end salesperson. That's kind of my marketing guy. Like that's the interesting thing to me. Adam's more of a back end operations person. Like I genuinely think if Adam never had to talk to anybody all day, he would be the most happy person in the world. If he just got to sit on the computer and do back end stuff, I'm sure he would agree. And me, I'm kind of the opposite, right? I hate doing the back end stuff. So I think it was great because we both really understood our roles in the relationship, right? He never tried to tell me how I should do sales and marketing. I never really told him how he should do ops and backend. Obviously, you have suggestions, right? Hey, I think we maybe should try this, or hey, I think we should maybe try that. But like we kind of had our own things that we were able to focus on.
Mhm.
And ultimately, like when you're working by yourself, you have so many ways that you have to split your focus and you have to get good at so many different things, right? So I think that that's when having a business partner is awesome because you can kind of split off the focus and then that allows you to both get really good at what you're focused on. So for me, when I'm sitting in the trenches all day focused on client acquisition, it allows me to get really, really good at that because that's all I'm doing. Right. Where with him, when he's all day focused on ops backend, it enables him to get really good at that. So I think it was awesome in that way. And yeah, it definitely gave me a good structure for business partnerships going forward. But I mean, if you look at the most successful people in the world, like, put agency to the side for a minute. Think about Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Bill Gates worked with Bill Gates Sr. a lot when we started Microsoft. Like so many of the successful people had a business partner. And I'm a big believer in that. But as well as it can go great, Jared, it can also go poorly as well. So it's like you can scale 2 times faster, maybe even more. But I forget who said this, but it's like 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2, right? And that's when things can get out of line. So it's very important. Picking a business partner is like I always joke with business partners. It's like, yeah, we're like married at this point. We're more committed to each other than you would be like almost in a marriage. So it's an important decision to make. But I think that Adam and I worked out well. Also, another thing too, and I'd be curious to hear, how yours and Matt's relationship was, but Adam and I weren't like the best of friends before we started. And then as we scaled, we became very, very close. So I also think there's something to that because, some people maybe will start with somebody that's a friend and then they can end up losing a business partnership and a friendship, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of a scary thing as well. So yeah, Adam and I, our friendship definitely grew as we grew our business, which was
Hmm.
really cool to see.
So it sounds like you're a pretty big proponent of having the right business partner when you're
Yep.
starting an agency or any business. And I think that's you're right, man. If you do look at a lot of the successful people, a lot of them have partners, even the ones that you don't know. Like Elon Musk has partners, people don't
Yep.
know that. Jeff
Totally.
Bezos has partners, no one knows, right? Yeah, man. And typically it's not like the silent people in the back end who really make it possible. And the
Yep.
visionary is at the forefront. So that
Yep.
makes sense, man. Yeah, man. With Matt and I's last partnership. So interestingly enough, Matt and I bought the same course. It was Billy Wilson's course. I think it was 2018, possibly. Yeah, 2018, I think. And we knew each other from that course. We were competitors. He was in gym space. Um, gyms went down after COVID, and then from there we eventually connected, and I scaled my ecom agency up. And then I got out of that, and then I said, dude, let's basically like build a franchise for people. Like, we're gonna build agencies. So we created something called the agency franchise before Done For You was like a thing. Like we did
Yeah.
this years ago, and we were building people's agencies, and that just went horribly wrong. And but we were really good friends before that, and we got really really close over time. And then we
Mm.
created that partnership. That partnership didn't go well, but Matt, God bless his soul, such a nice and genuine guy and
Yeah.
forgiveful. I mean, he forgiving. I was a jerk. I was a really bad partner for the first partnership, and I, looking back at it, I'm like, what the heck? I feel so bad that I treated him like that, right? And for some reason, he still wanted to partner with me for the second agency, and then that's how that kind of crafted. And we became closer friends, I would say, after it for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Because you bond over so many experiences, right? You bond when things go well, you bond when things go poorly. It's just that's how you build a relationship with somebody. So it's an awesome thing. It's
100.
just, it's like a partner in life, bro. You see some people that, they've been married to the same woman for 30 years and they're more happy than they ever have been. And you see some people that say, I got married once and it went horribly and I'm never going to be married again. So I would say that I also think this as well, Jared. I'm sure you would agree having a partner is not going to make you succeed. I think if you're going to have a partner, you could both be successful on your own, but you're coming together to build something bigger. So Ashton and Eddie, phenomenal example, right? Both had their own respective agencies, both did really well with their own respective agencies, partnered up, and they've now built like a powerhouse. So
Yeah.
I think that, sometimes it's like 1 + 1 might equal 10. It's like having two guys they might put together and, scale even further. So it's an important decision to make of who you're going to partner with.
Mm.
It's big.
That's interesting, man. A lot of people look at partnerships like addition, subtraction, but it's really multiplication. I
Yeah, in
never
a
looked
way.
at it that way. That's fascinating. I like the
Well,
way that
dude,
you put that.
the way I think about it is like, the old saying, master, jack of all trades, master of none. Like
Mhm.
when you are trying to do everything, how good can you get at everything? Whereas if you just focus on one thing, you're able to get really good at that one thing. And then you can build the team and systems around you. So like I'm a UFC fan, right?
Okay.
So like Alex Pereira is like one of my favorite fighters. He's really good at kickboxing. He's not really that good at anything else.
Yeah.
That's how he wins is by kickboxing. So because he's just focused on kickboxing, it's allowing him to win. So maybe not the best example, but I feel like it still somehow translates to say like when you're really good at this one thing and you can have the full confidence to know, hey, these other areas of the business are taken care of. I can just focus on what I love, what I'm good at, and I can continue to build that skill. You just get infinitely better, right? When you have somebody else that's kind of supporting you. So that's the way I kind of look at it.
Super interesting. Okay, so let's talk about what made Lee Jolt the success that it was. I mean, when we started at State AI, I mean, we looked at you guys and we're like, oh, you guys are absolutely crushing it.
Yeah.
We definitely looked at a lot of what you guys were doing. So like, I'm
Yeah.
curious to know, like, on a deeper level, what was the foundation that made it into the company that it was?
Yeah, well, dude, I'm sure that you know this as well because you're somebody like myself who's just like a, run through walls type of person. When you're doing something, you never really realize like what you're doing. Only in hindsight do you realize like, oh man, we did a pretty cool thing with this, that's not very typical. So like somebody
Yeah.
was telling me this other day, it's like, man, you guys really had stuff dialed in. And I guess, you know, you blow up the things in your mind that aren't great because that's the problems that you're trying to solve. So you make those look a lot bigger than they are, but then you don't realize like man, I'm doing a lot of other stuff like really right. So yeah, I think that man, there was a lot of just resilience on our side. We weren't ever going to tap out. I think that was the thing about Adam and I. It's like no matter what happened, we were just going to say we can figure this out. We're just going to blow through it. So I think we were just super resilient in that way. Like I think there's probably a lot of people watching this video that are kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out on agency, and they're thinking like, well, if the agency doesn't work out, then I'll do this. If the agency doesn't work out, I can try this. There's always this backup plan. Like Adam and I just never had that, dude. Like it was just like, we're going to make the agency work and you're going to have to kill us if not. It's like the 50 Cent get rich or die trying. Like
Yeah,
that was where we were at, dude. It was like, we're going to make this thing work. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Right. So I think that was the biggest thing was just the mindset that we had. And then I think it was also just our ability to say, like, hey, I'm going to focus on what I'm really good at. You're going to focus on what you're really good at. And, we're going to scale. So I think that obviously we're really good at sales and marketing, as you guys are as well. I think that, I mean, I'm sure you would agree. You've done it multiple times at this point. If you're not good at sales and marketing, you don't have an agency. I always tell people like, you have a sales business that sells marketing. You don't have a marketing business,
yeah,
because how many people do you know, Jared, that are much better at media buying or client fulfillment or whatever than you and I are, but that
for
have
sure.
a tenth of the clients,
For sure.
you know? So I
And
think
you
that,
know what? I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh no, please go ahead.
I was just gonna say you said something that really stuck out to me, which is yes, they have a tenth of the clients and they couldn't in theory be better, but in reality, I will always win, not just because I have more clients, and you and I will always win, not because we have more clients or more capital, but because we can invest into getting way more data, way better client results, and hire the better people that are better than them. So at
Yep.
the end of the day, we will still win, even if they are better.
100%. And the way I always looked at it is probably similar to the way you looked at it is like there's strength in numbers. So
Mhm.
it's like if you're going to go to war, do you want to go to war with 1,000 people or with 10 people? So the way I looked at it is, hey, the more clients I'm able to get, the more capital is now in my hands, the more I can reinvest back into the stuff that's broken.
Yep.
Right. So like a lot of people right now, they're getting like 2 clients, 3 clients, and they're like, man, I'm just going to really make sure things work with these clients. My answer is always, well, what happens when you lose them?
Yep.
Because you and I know more than anyone. I promise you, you and I know more than anyone. You can get the best results in the world. They still might leave. So you need like I know, Jared, that we both know this more than anybody. If you can get them amazing results, everything can be perfect. They can leave you a testimonial about how great the service was. They still might leave. So that's why our mindset was always, hey, we just got a client. It's awesome. We're going to do the best job we can possibly do to serve this client, but let's go get another one. And I think that was the mindset that we had that really allowed us to excel at the end of the day.
Mm. What was it that, okay, you guys were in a super, real estate's a super competitive niche, quote unquote competitive, right? I don't think you and I looked at it that way in terms of how saturated it was. We just saw that as opportunity. At least that's the way I looked at it.
Yep.
So how did you guys stand out in a place where there's a bunch of commodities, basically?
Yep. You got to make it feel different. And I think that's what we did a really good job at. And there's also positioning, right? Like the positioning, I think, is a huge thing that nobody really talks about, but it's how you position your agency to feel different. Um, I mean, much like you, Jared, I always study everyone. So I remember you had like the rap ad, for instance,
Yeah.
right? You were pretty much the only person in real estate niche that was doing that. That made you feel different. Even if there's 15 other agencies that are doing exactly what your agency was doing, just by you having this one different ad and a little different feel, your agency feels different. So I think that we were really good at positioning things, making things feel different. Like, for instance, we never said Facebook ads on a call. It was always local authority campaign. And then they
Yep.
would say, well, what's a local authority campaign? I'm glad you asked. And then so we just made things feel different. And it was almost a game of like, hey, how can we spin things to make it feel different? Or what can we do to stand out? Because there is so many people that they just kind of go by the book. They will, copy or whatever. I was always trying to innovate. And you said the word innovate earlier. Like, I think that was always my mindset. And the more you innovate, the more stuff you try. Of course, some stuff's not going to work out, but the more you're going to find what works. So I think we tested a million different things. I know you did the same thing, I'm sure, like testing different offers, testing different, ways of positioning the offer, saying this word versus that word, just small things that people don't even think to do Like you get the best results when you just become creative, in my opinion. When you try different things, when you're creative, when you think outside the box a little bit. And that's what we did,
Yeah.
I think, very
Okay.
well.
You guys had the local authority. We had the Blackhawk system. That's what
There
we
you
call
go.
it. So dude, you're 100% right, man. It's super interesting because the most success, I mean, this is my third podcast today.
Let's go. That's
And
awesome.
and I was talking to two other agency owners, and dude, it's so simple. At least maybe it's simple to us, but it's so simple what we do to stand out, to grow, to scale. But what the commonality I see is that everyone's just doing the simple things to get to the next level. They're not
Mm,
overcomplicating it.
yep.
So super fascinating. Good to hear that you kind of just validated a lot of what everyone else said earlier today on the other podcast. So
Yeah, well,
um,
just to add to that, like the
yeah,
reason that works, bro, is because nobody's ever going to say, well, I tried the Blackhawk system and didn't get good results for it. Or the agent down the road tried the Blackhawk system and it didn't work. It's like you're making it feel different, right? Because if you say Facebook ads, well, they can say, well, my neighbor tried Facebook ads, my cousin tried Facebook ads, didn't really work out for him. So it's like you might be saying things that are triggering someone in the sales process that they don't even associate with you, right? And when you can make it feel different, you can spin it in a new way, then it feels different, right? And I just think that like a lot of people that are trying to start agencies just have a lack of creativity. And I think a lot of people that have done super well, again, super creative. Like, dude, the rap ad that you did, I'm sure you guys closed hundreds of deals just from that one ad. Who else thought to do that? You know what I mean? Like, not a lot of other people thought to do that, but you got results because you thought outside the box. So I think that's like the biggest differentiator is just thinking outside the box, being creative.
dude, Joel Kaplan used to say, "Innovate or die,"
Mm, it's true.
and it's so true. And you know what the problem is? People, there's videos and podcasts like this on the internet, and people see this agency game. They're like, "Oh," and the gurus are pushing it like, "Hey, copy and paste exactly what I did,
Yes.
step by step." But that's not business. That's a franchise. If you want a franchise, go out there and get a McDonald's. Go
Yeah.
out there, work for Chick-fil-A as an operator.
Right.
Um, this is not that type of business. That can get you to 10K.
Yeah.
It's not gonna get you to 100K.
I'm
And
sure you were the same way. Like if I ever joined a program and let's say I got some sort of template for something, I was always changing it.
yep.
Like I was like, okay, we get this email template in this course that I just bought. Cool. I'm going to change it. You know what I mean? Like I was always like a little bit of a rebel in that way where I was just like, hey, I want to put my own spin on it because, dude, you know more than anything. I'm sure you had offers that you've tested in the past or angles or messaging that you've used. It worked really well at first. People caught on. They started to copy. It didn't work as well.
Yep.
Right. And so that's why you constantly have to be innovating because even right now, if you come up with something that's groundbreaking, if it works well enough, people are going to start to copy it, dude. And then it's not going to work as well. So that's the thing. It's like you can copy and maybe be good for a few months and have a little bit of success. But if you innovate, you'll always be able to sustain success. And that's kind of the way that like I've always thought.
Dude, 100%. So now a lot of people are going to ask, well, what if I'm not creative? What if I don't innovate? I don't know about you. For me, I mean, that's the benefit of having a team. It's
Mm.
20 brains, not just one. But what would you say to them? And I think it's just a limiting belief, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say, look, everyone's creative in some way, right? You've been creative at one point in your life. Even if it was when you were a kid and you were finger painting, like you were creative at some point. So I think if you're not able to harness that creativity, then I would do competitive analysis. Like, bro, I'm a huge believer in competitive analysis. I mean, you even confirmed it a second ago, where when you were going to launch a state AI, what did you do? You looked at the landscape of other agencies in the space. And I think that so few people are doing that right now. And I think that's such an underrated thing of saying, like, who else is out there that we can study, that we can not copy, but maybe model? And
Yeah.
like, what are they doing that's working well? What ways have they innovated? How can I take that and kind of spin off of it? So, yeah, I would say a team helps, but I would say that like everybody's a little bit, if you're willing to start a business from scratch, you're creative. You know what I mean? Like, that's a creative thing in and of itself. So, I would say that everybody's got a little bit of creativity. If you're struggling, do competitive analysis.
Mm, dude, 100%. Dude, if I believe that if the Facebook ad library isn't in your last 50 search results, and you're probably that's gonna tell me if you're gonna make it or not.
100%.
I'll be honest. So, dude, that's super interesting. Okay, so I want to dive back a little bit, right? Into well, before I talk about how working at the previous jobs kind of impacted, you starting an agency of going all in versus just, kind of having that safety net because there is some data that supports having that safety net. So I want to touch on that for a second. But before we do, let's dive into obviously you had a lot of success with Lee Jolt. What would you have done differently?
It's a great question. Um, I think realistically, I mean, obviously, you know that every single person that's done this agency thing, they've all kind of struggled with retention.
Mhm.
And you guys sound like you did a lot of stuff to kind of combat that. Ours wasn't ever where I wanted it to be, but when I actually look at the numbers in hindsight, it wasn't as bad as I felt like it really was. Um, so I think that realistically would have probably paid more attention to retention. There's a nice rhyme there. But I think that I would have doubled down earlier. I remember in 2021, I was so scared to spend more than $300 a day on ads. It was like 300 a day is fine, but if I spend 325, I'm going to be eating out of a soup can on the side of the road. I don't know what this mental barrier was in my brain. I do know what it was. When you get in the agency world, you want to make 10K a month. And when you think about spending 10K a month on ads, it's scary, right? But when I look at my numbers that I was producing in 2021, I should have just been like, man, we're getting appointments and our cost per acquisition is so low right now and our CAC is so good. Let's double down. So I think that it's like knowing when to double down, knowing when to pull back. But
Mhm.
that's all stuff it's easy to say in hindsight. Hindsight, it's always 2020. But I think that I would have tried to break some of the limiting beliefs that I have because the whole quote of you don't have business problems, you have personal problems that translate into your business. That's such a true thing, right? So any limiting beliefs that you have around money or you have around success or whatever, those are going to somehow impede on your journey, right? So, if you're selling a $2,000 per month package and you're shaking in your boots because you think $2,000 is so much money, you're going to really struggle to sell $2,000 a month packages because it's going to come through on the call in your conviction that you think this is a lot of money, right? So I think that at the end of the day, like I would have done more inner work on my own personal beliefs and things of that nature. And I think that I would have focused more on the retention side and then would have doubled down when it made sense to double down and maybe pulled back a little bit when it, made more sense to pull back.
I'm curious, and you know what? I think if we sat like 50 people or a room of 50 agency owners that have had massive success, and we all put them in the room, I think retention would come up a lot. So I'm curious what you would do differently with retention. And I'm in the same boat. Looking back, like you said, I don't think it was definitely as bad relative to most agencies, but
Yeah.
all still could have been better.
Again, you blow up problems in your mind, right? So you're looking at something, especially if it's your main focus, and you're thinking, man, this is such a big problem because you're blowing up the problem in your mind. So, man, that's a great question. I think that we did really good on the expectational side. I think I would have put more into the actual result side itself,
Mm,
in terms of innovating on ad creative, graphic design, making better creatives for clients, investing more into the actual media buying, training the clients better. As you know, when you're doing lead gen, at some point it goes out of your hands and it kind of hedges on the ability of the clients. So I think just supporting clients all around more. Again, you're still going to lose people, regardless of. I mean, you can do everything for a client, they still might leave. There's always circumstances that are out of your control. But I think, from the back end operations to some of the fulfillment stuff with media buying and graphic design and creative and things of that nature, um, probably would have been some of the things that I would have looked at a little bit more.
mm. What was the hardest time in your agency journey?
It's a great question, bro. So, I mean, I was pretty fortunate to, I don't know, I think I was just always like prepared for the storm. So, like when things would go wrong, I don't think it would ever really throw me off too much. Um, it's a great question, man. We were pretty fortunate to, never have times where it was like horrible, horrible, horrible. I did have one client success manager who left and he left in a very bad way and tried to get a bunch of clients to leave. And
Wow.
that was like the most stressful thing ever. I'll never forget that. But you learn a big lesson from that. Um, that was probably the worst thing that ever happened. If I had to highlight one like awful thing that happened, I had this CSM that left and he tried to bring a bunch of clients with him and stuff like that. So that sucked, but you got through it. You got through it at the end of the day. It's fine. I always had a pretty good attorney as well. So I started having like a pretty much a full-time attorney in at the end of 2020. And I remember like right when it all happened, I called him and was like, what can we do? Like, can we sue this guy or whatever? And he was like, look, man, just relax. You won't even be worried about this next week. And I remember just being like, yeah, you're right. And then by the next week it rolled around, it was fine. So I think that you know, it's never as bad as we think it is. Like any problems that you're having when you look back on them. And that's a good lesson in and of itself is like it's a very biblical concept as well. Like, don't worry about it today if you're not gonna have to worry about it a week from now or a month from now. Like you're probably gonna have forgotten most of the stuff that you're worried about. So I'm sure if you asked me in 2021, I would have given you a laundry list of stuff. Oh, I'm worried about this and this and this, and there's this problem. But now it's like I don't even remember. It's like it's not that it's never as big of a deal as you think it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, dude, you transitioned out of the agency, it sounded like. Um, and it sounds like you went right into working with Iman, right? Iman
Yeah,
Ghazi.
yeah, pretty much. I really, I don't know. I just think Iman's an awesome guy. He helped me a lot, so I wanted to kind of do some work with him. He's a phenomenal guy, super smart, man. Like he is so smart. Just obviously from all the stuff that people online have seen him do. I mean, he's a very genuine person too. He's genuinely just a good person. So yeah, I got to work with him and his team. Definitely learned a lot there. Very cool. Again, it breaks a belief in your brain, right? Of we all have these glass ceilings whether we know it or not. I think I learned a lot about the glass ceilings that I had while working with him and just the way that he kind of operates and, the way that he kind of carries himself. There's a lot to learn from him for sure. So, yeah, it was fun, man. It definitely had a fun time there.
What were some of those glass ceilings, if you don't mind sharing? And yeah, let's dive into that.
Well, I think that in my mind, I realized that, hey, 8 figures is not that different from 7 figures. And,
Mm.
you kind of just have to add more people and you got to do more sales. It's like, I think that we really complicate things in our brain a lot of thinking like, I mean, I'm sure even when you were starting, when I was starting, you see 7 figures as this like big hill to climb. And then you get there and you realize like, I mean, I kind of did what I thought I would have to do, get
Yeah.
clients, get some results for them, etc. But I think that there was a mental shift that I had to make to realize like, hey, you know, working inside of an 8 figure company, realizing like, you know, there's obviously a lot of things that have to be done right, but I wasn't that far off, I think is what I realized and what I learned. So that's probably the biggest thing. But sometimes as humans, right, we have to see it in order to believe it. Right. So I think that that was a big thing for me.
Super interesting. How does an eight-figure entrepreneur operate versus a six and seven-figure entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, where you might not have partners, but you're going to have operators. You're going to have people that kind of help you operate and help you scale. And then you just focus on the things that you're really good at. I think this is an amazing example of that. Like, you have things that you're really good at, your skill sets, your strong suits, and you just double down on those. And then you build team around you to do the stuff that either you're not as good at or that you don't like doing as much. And I think that's like what the best people in the world all do. They do what they are good at doing and they have a team around them. The president has his cabinet and, so on and so forth. So, you get to focus on what you're good at, what you like doing, and the people around you kind of help support you and, you know, build those systems, I think is the way that I see it.
Interesting. Okay. Dude, let's do some quick rapid fire.
Please.
How many clients did you guys close in the entirety of running Lee Jolt?
In the whole time,
Yep.
it was around 800. I think the exact number is 771. We played
Seven.
with price a lot,
Wow.
though.
Okay.
So all of 2022, our minimum retainer was 2,500 a month. And I
Wow.
remember I remember people asking me like, how are you charging this? And I remember kind of thinking like, I have no idea. But I think our offer was just good enough to kind of get away with it. So yeah, I think that in 2022, if we would have had smaller retainer, I think we would have, closed double the amount of clients more than likely. But again, there's pros and cons to each. So yeah, it was 771, I think was the number.
Wow. 771 SMMA clients. And what was your I'm not the biggest believer in like revenue, and I don't really care much about revenue, but what was your top line revenue on your best month?
A best month. Oh, 230, 240. And that's not including ad spend. So I'm not never factoring in ad spend on that. So that's, straight payments to the
Yeah,
account. We never billed for ad spend. I know a lot of people bill for ad spend and then kind of can cause some inflation on the numbers, but yeah, just 220, 230.
220, 230. Wow, $230,000 with a real estate agency, 700 plus clients. That's impressive. I mean, dude,
Thank you, bro.
I've been there. Real estate is definitely a tough one. So,
It's a tougher one.
yeah.
It's a tough one to maintain, bro. I think that's the thing. I think it's an easier one to scale up, tough one to maintain. I mean, even you and I have seen it. How many people were in the space, marketing in the space, that aren't around anymore in that space? So I
Oh
think that
my
it's
goodness. Yeah, man. I mean, I'm super blessed to say Estate AI is still around. I mean, I don't run anymore. I exited, but like, dude, when we got in, we had like four or five big competitors. We had Zale Media, Coal to Soul, so many other people, and none of them are around anymore.
yeah, even our huge competitor that we had, Bold Leads. I don't know if you remember
Oh,
them as
yes.
much.
Yep.
Even they're not around anymore, bro. They were
Really?
yeah, they were multi eight figure company. And like, I don't
Wow.
even think that you can go to their website anymore. They went completely away. So it's like, it's even just outside of like the agencies, even like companies like them that was, really a software company, like even they're gone. So I think that the reason for that, bro, if when I've reflected on this, I just think that the life cycle of your business is probably going to match somewhat the life cycle of your niche that you're in. So average real estate agent doesn't stick with it very long, right? Average real estate agent maybe sticks it out a year, 2 years, maybe. So there's not as much stability in that niche because people are leaving, right? So I don't know. That's kind of the way I think about it. Could be wrong, but
That's a fascinating way to look at it. I mean, I'd be interested to look at the data on that, but it is a fascinating way to look at it. Cool. All right. So, dude, almost done with the questions,
you're
but
good, man. I'm enjoying this.
with the grilling you. But
No, it's fine.
I would like to dive into um for the person watching, right? They
Uh-huh.
see the success. They've seen you, you know, working with Iman. They've seen you scaling an agency, and it all started. You were working a job. You were in school. You bought a Ty Lopez course. Maybe they're where you're at or where you were at, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and they want to get started. They want to scale, but they don't know what to do. They feel lost. They're lacking clarity. What's your advice to them?
Well, I think things get more clear when you dive in, right? So the more you overanalyze, the more you play through scenarios in your mind of how things could go wrong, right? Have you ever heard of the 3 second rule with a woman?
No.
Okay. So basically, the idea is, let's say you and I go out for dinner or we're at the bar and you see a woman, and you should go approach her in 3 seconds of seeing her.
Mhm.
Because if not, the longer you sit with it, the longer you overanalyze. What if I say this? And what if she says this? And what if she has a boyfriend? And what if I offend her and she throws a drink in my face? Like, you go so ridiculous in this loop in your head. Whereas, like, if you just do it and you just get started, you're going to learn, right? As you go. So it's like, I think you'll learn more as you go. And at the end of the day, if you're a person who's resilient and if you're a person that has the confidence to back yourself, you're always going to figure it out. And I also think that an agency is a business where you pretty much start with nothing, meaning you don't have to spend a lot of money. It's pretty easy to get started and you learn so much. I mean, Jared, I think that like when you and I are in our 30s or 40s, we'll be doing things in probably bigger businesses, probably outside of the agency world. And we'll be referencing things that we did with our agencies 20 years ago and saying, like, hey, I learned this through this agency. So it's like your agency can parlay into so many other opportunities. I think that's kind of the beauty of it. So I think I would just get started because my mindset was always, if I keep doing what I'm doing now, I'm always going to be where I am. If I go try this, worst case, I get some fun stories. I get some stories that I can sit around and tell my friends of how I did this thing and we tried it out and whatever. So I think that the worst case scenario is you give it a try. You'll learn a lot about yourself. You'll learn a lot about business. And there's just so many lessons to be had. But I also think another to counteract that, to give another side of the argument, if you're if you're really having to convince yourself, then I would maybe look at your intentions again. Because for me, I never really had to like convince myself that I needed to run an agency. I kind of just wanted to. The opportunity fascinated me. Work from your computer, have the ability to make millions of dollars doing that. That was always interesting enough for me to say, like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to do this. So I think that the best thing that everybody can do is sit down and think about what you actually want. And if an agency seems like it aligns with what you want, then by all means, get in the agency world and kick some ass.
Mm. Dude, I'm curious because you transitioned out the agency space and now you're moving on to new things. I guess what's your 100-year plan?
It's a great question. I love agency, man. So I'm working on another agency right now. We've been kind of quiet about it. I haven't
Really?
yeah, I haven't
Wow, dude.
you're gonna have to fly through the ad library. I miss running an agency, man. I think
Wow.
running an agency is just so fun. Such a cool business model. I just it's a business model where you can build residual income, and I think another thing too is when you play the game, and then you go play the game again. It's like video games, right? If I play through a game and then I restart the game and play it again, like Pokemon, for instance, I know that when I go face this gym leader, I need to use this type of Pokemon, and when I face this other one, I need to use this type. So I think that when you play through the game again, hey, I did this wrong here, and I need to do this right this time, or what have you. And I think that, dude, you're an amazing case study of this, where you've done multiple different agencies successfully at this point, multiple different industries. That's not luck. What would be the probability that you can do however many agencies you've done now successfully time and time again? It's all pretty much the same. So a lot of people will say, well, you did real estate agents or you did Facebook ads. I think that had very little to do with the success that I had. It was
Yeah.
the other stuff that we did that really worked, because there's a million people that done real estate Facebook ads that, didn't have the success. So I think that that's why I'm excited, because it's, hey, I've learned so many lessons and now I can reapply those lessons. I almost feel like it would be a disservice to not do it again, because I learned so much the first time.
Yeah, dude, I hear you. Was Lee Jolt your first agency?
Yeah. I mean, it was really the first agency.
Dude,
I
I
mean,
I get that. I get that. After Scope, I felt that's the only reason I did the real estate because I felt like I could do it again. I felt like I could do it way better, and I had to prove myself to some extent. So
truly,
I get that. God bless you, man. I'm gonna pray with you on that one because
God bless you, bro.
I'm done with the agency space. But you're right, man. It's a beautiful game,
Well,
and
here's another thing.
yeah,
You're going to build a skill set, and the way that you utilize that skill set is going to change, right? And it's going to go into more lucrative opportunities. So it's like you build the skill set of playing baseball, but the guy who plays in high school versus the guy who plays at the professional level and makes hundreds of millions of dollars, same skill set, right? One might be more talented than the other one, but you're applying it in a different way.
yeah,
So like that's kind of the way that I would think about it is, you're Alex Becker, Hyros, amazing example. Sam Ovens School, they built this skill set, and then they said, hey, I think there's a bigger opportunity here where I can leverage my same skill set that I'm good at, but I can just do it in a bigger vehicle. So that's the natural evolution. Like you learn the skill set, you learn the skills, and then you apply it into a different, opportunity that maybe
yeah.
has bigger potential.
Yeah, 100%. Dude, super grateful that you came on. Last question for you. This is a fun one I ask everyone, which is, let's say you're on top of a mountain, all right? And there's people at the bottom of the mountain, and they need to get up because there's a storm coming. If they don't get up the mountain, they're gonna get flooded out. You're at the top. You've made it. What's gonna be your advice to them to get from where they're at the bottom of the mountain, to the top, to safety?
That's a great question. I think I would try to lead by example and say, hey, I went this way. You should go that way too. So maybe that's kind of like me being a little bit of an a-hole with that answer, but no, dude, that's what I would say. I would say this is the route I took. It was easier for me. You should do that same thing.
Dude,
Um,
I love it.
if I had some rope or something, maybe I would try to lasso them, or something. But I think that, look, many people before us have done what we want to do, and it's easy to model those people, and it's easy to see what they've done. And the way I think about it as well is like, how many people, Jared, had so much success with like so much fewer resources?
No.
Like, John D. Rockefeller, bro, can you
Yeah.
imagine? There's no internet, there's no technology, there's so many things that he didn't have but still became, when you translate it in today's dollars, I think still be the wealthiest person on the planet. So I think that you need to, as they say, stand on the shoulders of titans or whatever the case may be. Meaning, learn from other people that have kind of done what you're looking to do, and try to replicate them as closely as you can.
Dude, it's easy to do, hard to execute, and that's what's missing. All the information's out there. Go out there, take action. I think that summed it up perfectly. That answer also tells me you are a true capitalist, and I love it. Dude, thank you so
Thanks, bro.
much for hopping on. Absolute pleasure. Guys, if you enjoyed that, make sure you go
Thanks,
ahead,
Jared.
follow, and subscribe to all of John's platforms down below. All of his information is going to be down below. Thank you once again, man, for hopping on. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Jared.
Yo, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you liked it, make sure you smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and turn on bell notifications so I can see you in the next one. And last but not least, make sure you guys check out one of these fire videos that the YouTube algorithm just hand selected for you. And guys, if you want to work with me on a one-on-one basis so I can help you scale your agency and take it to new heights like I've done in the past, because I've built 2 7-figure marketing agencies before I could legally drink, go ahead, click down below, fill out an application, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.